There are 6 councilors present. President Duncan is absent.
I do too, pledge allegiance. Would everybody please join me in the pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 on the agenda is special orders of the day and announcements.
We have a proclamation recognizing February as Black History Month.
Can we have Councilor Preschel up to the podium, and then can we also have Alicia Wash from Aldrich and Audrey Vaughn from McNeil join Mark at the podium? That's not. Okay. You're good.
We're on now?
Yep.
So we have 2 people? Come on up here. Come on up here. Whereas, in 1915, the father of Black history, Godwin Woodson, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History and proposed the celebration of Black History Month. And whereas 2020's Black History theme is African Americans and the vote, emphasizing the struggle on the part of both black men and women for the right to vote. And whereas the year 2020 also marks the centennial of the 19th Amendment and the culmination of the women's suffrage movement. And whereas African American women were courageous visionaries who led the fight to end slavery and tenacious activists who fought to expand basic civil rights for all Americans. And whereas the year 2020 also marks the sesquicentennial of the 15th Amendment and the right of black men to the ballot after the Civil War. And whereas through voting rights campaigns and legal suits from the turn of the century to the mid-1960s, African Americans made their voices heard as to the importance of the vote. And whereas during National Black History Month, the city of Beloit recognizes the champions of justice and sacrifices they made to bring us to this point, we honor the contributions of African Americans since our country's beginning, and we recommit to reaching for a day when no person is judged by anything but the content of their character. And whereas it's our responsibility to address the inequalities and injustices that linger, and we must secure our birthright freedoms for all people. As we commemorate Black History Month, let us reflect on the sacrifices and contributions made by generations of African Americans and all Americans, and let us resolve to continue our march toward a day when every person knows the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas, let us commit ourselves to raising awareness and appreciation of African American history, and let us reaffirm the promise of our Constitution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Beloit proclaims February 2020 as Black History Month in the City of Beloit and encourages the support and participation of all residents to observe this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs, adopted this 3rd day of February 2020.
I'll say something. Thank you.
She's good.
I didn't used to need these. Definitely need them now. Well, I just want to thank the City Council for this proclamation. I accept with honors and humility. I am reminded as I stand here of my ancestors who diligently labored, fought for their rights, and helped build America. I am reminded of how we can become complacent with the status quo and take democracy for granted. I am reminded of the many rights, but I'm also reminded not to forget our God-given rights, our human rights. I accept this proclamation for those ancestors who paved the way, not only for me, but for all of us. And I'm mostly proud of those who had the courage to fight and to stand. And we still have a long way to go, but we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say thank you for this recognition. I do the work that I do in the school district of Beloit for our students, and it means a lot for this to be recognized because my job is to advocate for our students of all races, and Black History Month is a very important holiday for a large majority of our students, and I really appreciate this recognition. Thank you.
With that, we'll go to item 4, public hearings. There are no public hearings. So item 5, public comment. We've reached the point in the agenda for residents to speak to council about issues that are coming before us or may become before us in the future. Council members may not act on requests at this meeting, but may refer a speaker to staff. We ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes and refrain from personal attacks of any kind. Public comment is a privilege, and we expect everybody to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Speakers are asked to complete a public comment form and turn it in prior to the meeting. Each individual will be invited to the podium and asked to state their name and address for the record. Since we have no forums, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak during public comment? Second call, anyone wishing to speak at public comment? Final call, anyone wishing to speak at public comment? Hearing none, we will close public comment portion and move to item 6, consent.
All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda.
Would any council member like anything removed from consent?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, I would like the item 6C removed from the consent agenda, please.
Okay, item 6C will be removed from consent. The consent agenda consists of items 6A, 6B, and 6D. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move.
Second.
Motion by Forbeck, second by Levy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item 6C. City Manager Luther.
This is consideration of Resolution 2020-031, authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to assist with funding the Powerhouse Riverwalk.
Now to City Manager Luther.
Thank you. The city has been working in partnership with Beloit College for quite some time to develop the Powerhouse Riverwalk. This project specifically is the public walkway that would be near the river and would connect our trail system from the Wood Family Bridge, being able to go to the Beloit campus and connecting all the way to downtown. In 2015, the city initially started working on this project, and it was originally bid in March of 2018. At that time, the bid prices were substantially over budget, and those bids were rejected. Given the increased estimated expense, the city then pursued a stewardship grant through the Department of Natural Resources, and we were successful in receiving another $824,000 towards this project. The project was then rebid a second time in March 2019, but no bids at that time were received. At that point, the city and the college worked very closely with Secretary of Transportation Craig Thompson and the department. He and his staff worked diligently with the Department of Natural Resources so we could address access issues and permitting issues that we thought might have been creating some questions in the minds of bidders and whether or not to pursue the project. So we just rebid the project, opened those bids January 14th of 2020. The good news is we received several bids from highly qualified companies, and the downside of this is that we came in a bit short again in regard to estimated budget. That said, we have been very creative again in trying to accomplish the funding gap. This is a $3.6 million project, and the city has approximately $2 million in state and federal grant funds that are at risk if we cannot complete the project. I do not believe it is reasonable to suspect that rebidding the project would reduce costs in any way. We have evaluated design, worked with the permitters, etc. This price is solid. That said, I am very pleased and grateful to announce to you this evening that in addition to pursuing this grant that is not guaranteed, but that we've been encouraged to pursue, we also have the benefit of our local partners who are supporting us. Beloit 200 voted on Friday of last week to provide $100,000 in direct funding for this project and up to an additional $100,000 of last-in funds once the project has been closed to make it work financially. That means we would have to expend all of the budgeted contingency in order to touch that second $100,000 mark. We're not there yet, but we're getting very close. I have a couple of meetings with private donors that may wish to remain anonymous, and we are very hopeful that given the fact that our gap now is started at $824,000, we're now down to a little over $100,000 gap. Should we be able to secure the additional funding, we would be able to then move forward and have the State of Wisconsin Department of Transportation award the bids on our behalf. I would anticipate, and it is noted in your staff comments, that the city would be looking regardless at a budget amendment for the increased project cost. And at that point in time, we would evaluate our capital funds fund balance for any projects that have come in under budget for potential additional local match. That would not be any new borrowing or at the jeopardy of any existing current projects. So at this point, I'm asking for your permission to apply for the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Community Development Investment Grant and to pursue that under the assumption that the rest of the local match required has been received, or that we at least have verbal assurance that those dollars are forthcoming. We would not pursue the grant if we don't have the local dollars necessary in addition to this $250,000 to finalize this Riverwalk project. I'm happy to respond to any other questions. There are renderings included in the packet, project description that goes into greater depth in regards to the connection of our pedestrians and bicyclists. Happy to address any of those issues. We also have our Economic Development Director, Andrew Yonke, in the audience, who has participated in a number of these CDI grant applications before. We're happy to provide any information you may need.
Thank you, City Manager Luther. And I think one of the reasons why I pulled that off consent is because I think it's important that the public kind of knows exactly what we talk about, how are we going to fund this if we don't get the grant, to make sure that it has been thought out properly and that no other projects in the city will be affected if, in fact, we use other money that has been set aside. So a lot of times I think it's very important that something of this magnitude, that the public truly understands where this funding is coming from, even if we don't get the grant, that it has been thought out and we're not stopping other projects. And that's what I heard you say, that we're not stopping other projects to make sure that this happens. So I think it's very important. So I appreciate your information on this, and I think it's, like I said, it's just for public information.
Thank you. This is a very unique project in that we have substantial state and federal funds that are assisting with both the city and the college match. Over $1 million in a Department of Transportation grant, nearly $1 million in a Department of Natural Resources stewardship grant, and potentially $250,000 from WEDC. So this is truly a local and state partnered, along with our private college and the private business community that is also bringing money to the table to help bring this to fruition. Thank you.
We're back. Yes.
I just want to also comment on the fact that, pardon me, this project, of all the huge wonderfulness of the Powerhouse project, this really is so centered on the community being able to access what is now an eyesore and is going to be one of our shining areas of excellence in Beloit that I think the city council, I would be proud to vote for this, because it's going to be so good for our citizens.
Yes, Counselor Preschel.
I want to summarize what Nancy was saying too. This path is what ties the community to the Powerhouse project directly and, virtually, more than virtually. It is the public access part of the whole project, and to go through and get the powerhouse up and running and this wonderful repurposing of a power plant, a coal-fired power plant, which at least in this country has never been done, and I only found one example online, and I'm not even sure that was the same vintage as this. This has never been done before, and it's just something that it would be truly tragic we couldn't put this path and get this tied together and make this work. And it's a very difficult location, and with its own little problems of dam, water, and some very poor sediment and area around the riverbank there. So anyway, it's added to all the complications, and it's been 2-3 years coming. And hopefully, we should be able to get there.
Just a closing comment, I neglected to say, while this has been a partnership with Beloit College, the construction of the building, the powerhouse structure itself, that is solely a project being funded by Beloit College and their fundraising efforts. This portion would be completely public, and this walkway will be owned and maintained by the city. Access is fully public at all times. And so we just want to clarify that this is physically separated from the powerhouse, but being built in conjunction with it.
Is there a motion to approve item 6E? Motion by Preschel, second by Jacobson. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. That motion carries. Item 7, licenses.
Consideration of Resolution 2020-025 for the approval of applicants for an alcohol beverage operator bartender's license for the years 2019, 2021. You have before you this evening a resolution with 8 recommendations for approval and 0 for denial.
Is there a motion to approve item 7A? Motion by Levy, second by Forbeck. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, ordinances.
Consideration of ordinance number 3675 to amend certain sections of the Index of Special Locations, sections 1302 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit. This is relating to the establishment of no parking zones along 3rd Street. This is a first reading.
Public Works Director Williamson will provide a report.
Thank you and good evening. This request came to us from the Ironworks tenants that were asking us to restrict parking along the east side of 3rd Street due to concerns about pedestrians trying to traverse along 3rd Street to get to the parking lot and with the competing traffic. This request was brought to the Traffic Review Committee. The Traffic Review Committee recommended approval. They asked that we work with the Ironworks, or Iron Tech, folks, and identifying, where we might have crosswalks. Those discussions are still ongoing, but at the request of those tenants, they ask that we get the signs installed now. So that is what's before you for your consideration.
Is there a motion to approve item 7A?
I so move.
Second.
Excuse me.
And I have a question.
I'll get it.
First reading.
Oh, lay it over. I'm sorry. Is there a motion to lay it over?
I do. Second, but I have a question.
Motion by Blakely, second by Levy. Counselor Levy, yes.
Has everyone in the area been notified about this, and have we had any negative feedback or?
Yes, everyone has been notified and we've received no negative feedback.
With that being said, Mr. Vice President, if I may, I would like to move this to a second reading. If we suspend the rules and move it to a second reading and move it for approval this evening. And I guess one of the concerns that I had, the reason I asked, was there any negative feedback? Because that would kind of indicate that there was, dissension. But if we're not hearing any right now, then I think we could move this forward, suspend the rules and move it to a second reading and final reading this evening.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend the rules. Oh, yeah, yes, City Attorney
We have
Curry.
a parliamentary issue right here. So, am I on? I'm on, okay. So, I believe Counselor Blakely had the original motion to lay it over. So if, Ms. Blakely, if you want to rescind that motion, then we can do a new motion.
When does discussion come up then at this point?
What-
If I rescind my motion, will we have another chance to discuss it before we vote?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to
Yeah.
the
Yes.
council vice president.
Therefore, I rescind my motion.
Okay.
And I
So we-
and I rescind my second.
And I second that emotion.
Okay.
Okay,
So we are now back to a clean slate. If you want to do some discussion before you take your next motion, perhaps that's in order.
yes, we
Okay.
can open up discussion, so Counselor Blakely.
Yes. I just wanted to know, by moving up the timeline on it, is that going to catch any people by surprise who may have been planning to make a comment to you later? You know, that's
Not that
so
any-
amorphous, but.
Any comments that at this point, we are receiving comments of getting the signs installed. So at this point, depending upon the pleasure of the council, we are being asked to put the signs up as soon as we can, so.
Oh, very good. You've
So
heard,
it's just the opposite. They're actually asking us to do
I
that
see.
in light of safety and security in the area.
oh, very good. Thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion to suspend the rules? There's a motion by Counselor Levy. Is there a second? There's a second by Forbeck. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion. Now to the merits. Motion by Jacobson,
Second.
second by Blakely. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 9, appointments. There are none. Item 10, counselor activities and upcoming events. Counselor Preschel.
I'll be brief tonight. February 8th, Saturday, we're speaking about the Powerhouse. There's a community event introducing the Powerhouse. It's open to the community. I think it's from 11 till 3. And that's this Saturday, so you can come out and see what's going on there in a formal event. Hopefully we have nice weather because it looks nice in the sunshine. And that's all for me today.
Counselor Jacobson.
No report.
Counselor Blakely.
I just want to encourage local people to volunteer for some of our boards and commissions. As a council member, I sit on Landmarks Commission, and I know that we very much need more people to volunteer for that particular one. And there may be others that are lacking too. So go to the city's website, take a gander there, and see if there's something that appeals to you, and go ahead and volunteer and help out your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Levy. No report. Counselor Forbeck.
No report.
All right, I'll keep mine brief too, because I feel like that's a trend. So, just wanted to, obviously President Duncan is gone, so I thank all of you for putting up with me tonight. Just wanted to wish her a happy belated birthday. She's out of town, and that's why I am stepping in tonight. So, just wanted to say happy birthday to her. And with that, we can move on to item 11, City Manager's presentation. There is none. Item 12, reports from boards and city officers.
12A is consideration of Resolution 2020-026, providing for the sale of approximately $1.8 million in general obligation promissory notes, Series 2020A.
Finance and Administrative Service Director Eric Miller and Dawn Gunderson will provide an overview of all the items coming up on the agenda, and then we'll approve each one separately.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. So as part of our annual capital improvement plan, we issue notes and bonds to fund the projects that are in that plan. And the initial resolutions before you tonight are the first step in issuing those notes and bonds. So with us tonight is Dawn Gunderson from Ellers, our financial advisor, and she will walk you through the presale reports.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. You've been provided with two presale reports. One of them is for the promissory notes, and the other one is for the general obligation bonds. And just to, so you understand the distinction between the two, state statute defines specifically what can be sold or what can be utilizing general obligation bonds. And bonds are financing projects for a period and amortizing it between 10 and 20 years, a max of 20 years. So it's very specific. So of the 5 resolutions that you're considering, 3 of them are those purposes. So you have your 12B is the purpose of doing street improvements. That's the largest portion of your financing. These will be part of the bond authorization. Then there's also some community development projects for $255,000 and some public works and grounds projects for $205,000. So those are the specific purposes that are allowed under the bond authority. And then your 12E is a consolidation of all three of those to issue one general obligation bond for not to exceed $3,630,000. And there's a requirement for municipalities, cities primarily, that you have to publish that within a certain period of time of taking action, so it directs the clerk to do that. And the first item that was read to you, 12A, that's the promissory notes, approximately $1,800,000. Notes are for projects like equipment and other items that are there to be amortized over a 10-year or less period of time. So I'll walk through the pre-sale report and kind of talk to you about the distinction between the two. But those are the two bonding issues that you'll be doing, and they're the resolutions that are necessary to accomplish all of that. So the pre-sale report, as I mentioned, there's one for the notes and one for the bonds. The narrative identifies the statutory authority that allows you to do this, general description of what the projects that are you're financing. We talk about call dates and the way we're going to sell this on a competitive basis and some criteria for pricing. But the items that are significant for you to understand are on page 6. They're the handouts. So you can see on page 6, we've identified all of the items that were in your 2020 capital plan. That breaks out which ones will be financed with promissory notes and which ones will be financed with the bonds. There's some estimated issuance expenses that are incorporated into this to come up with our sizing. So the sizing amounts are at the bottom for the two authorizing resolutions. On the second page of that document, or the second page of those schedules, on page 7, we've incorporated these two issues with all of your existing debt to come up with projections for the impact on your levy going forward by undertaking these projects, as well as the tax rate on the debt itself. These are estimated on an equalized basis. We make some assumptions, and we're fairly conservative on those assumptions moving forward. If there's any offsetting revenue from other sources, we've acknowledged that in here as well. And we track this to what you have in terms of your debt policies for the max amount of levy, tax rate, as well as the outstanding debt issuance, and this falls within both of those. We're also pleased to report that we're in an extremely low interest rate environment. So on page 8 of this document, we've shown a trend line of where interest rates have been over the last 12 months, and we're at historic lows now. If you look compared to what it was 12 months ago, we're in certainly a better timing to finance these projects than even 6 months ago. So we're pleased to report that as well. We've estimated these rates on actual sale results that we've seen for other fairly comparable rated entities. So if you move forward with these actions this evening on both of these, the next steps are kind of laid out on page 5 of this document. We will prepare an official statement, which is a prospectus for potential investors in your bonds and your notes. We will conduct a rating call with Standard & Poor's, and actually we are going to invite them to the city so they can see a lot of the things that have taken place here for economic development projects in recent years and opportunities that may be coming forward in near term. We used to have them come on a regular basis. We haven't done that for a number of years, so I think it's a good time to get them in to visit. We'll probably do that early the week of March 2nd. The official statement then gets distributed out into the market. It's published nationally. We distribute it to local and regional underwriters. We post it on our website as well. It's underwriters monitor that on a regular basis. We'll be back here at your meeting on March 16th, and that morning we'll have bids come in on a competitive basis. We'll be back here with resolutions requesting that you approve the lowest bid, so the lowest cost of financing to undertake all of these projects. So I'm happy to answer any questions that it might relate to the financing or any of the reports that we've handed out.
Counselor Blakely.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for being here, Don.
You're welcome.
On page 7, on the columnar breakdown of the preliminary planning, the less funds on hand / premium, what does that mean, / premium?
Yeah, so those funds relate to the issue the outstanding issue. It's probably from last year's financing.
Okay.
We would anticipate a premium again this year. And what a premium is it's driven by the environment within the market right now. So investors will bid with a premium, and they're basically bidding to pay you more than you're selling. So they're giving you cash up front in exchange for coupons. And so the couponing, it's like they earn a return on the investment. So, but they're asking that you pay a little higher coupon in exchange for this cash, so that if they're trading, these get traded in the secondary market all the time. So if they're traded in the secondary market, they're easier for them to sell a bond with a little higher coupon than what you're going to, what we've indicated here. And that premium allows for that. So we can use the premium to downsize part of the issue to a point by law. So if we have an underwriter discount that is paid to the underwriter, we can pay for that with a premium. But any excess comes to you and deposited into your debt service fund. You can use that to pay for interest on the bonds. So this is left over from last year that you'll be using in 2020 to help defray some of that interest expense. We usually restructure at that time, so we pay a little bit more principal earlier, and it helps kind of manage that as well. So that's what those funds are. They're from last year's. We would expect that we'll see something again with the issue this time as well.
Oh, very good, that really clarifies it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions for Dawn or Eric?
I just want to point out that you said this is the lowest level, and, let's hurry up and take advantage of that, I guess, because what goes down must go back up, right? So
One would
this is-
think.
We benefited greatly 3 years ago from a similar
Yeah.
issuance. A huge benefit. I think it was just eye-poppingly large then.
And I might also mention, because of this low interest rate environment, Eric and I continually monitor all your outstanding debt. We've looked at everything. There's some minor savings in a few things, but it's not worth the cost of going through that. With exception of you have outstanding revenue bonds with your water utility, and we've run that, and there's some significant savings. So I'll be back in 2 weeks to share that with you. We would, it doesn't require as much time as these do. That publication isn't necessary. So we will be back with that resolution, and then you'll sell all 3 of them on the same date. So, that will provide some savings to your water utility.
And miss all benefits from our having a good bond rating to start with.
Your management of your finances is very important in all of this, yes.
Thank you.
There are no other comments. Is there a motion to approve item 12A?
So moved.
There's a motion by Preschel, second by Jacobson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 12B.
Consideration of Resolution 2020-027, authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $3.170 million for street improvement projects.
Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Levy. Is there a second? Second by Forback. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 12C.
Consideration of initial resolution 2020-028, authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $255,000 for community development projects.
Is there
So moved.
motion by Forback, second by Levy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 12D, please.
Consideration of initial resolution 2020-029, authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $205,000 for parks and public grounds projects.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by Blakely, second by Preschel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 12E.
Consideration of resolution 2020-030, directing publication of notice to electors relating to bond issues and providing for the sale not to exceed $3.630 million general obligation corporate purpose bond series 2020B.
There's motion by Levy, second by Forback. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item 12F.
The city may adjourn into closed session in the first floor conference room pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.851G, specifically to discuss potential litigation with the town of Turtle regarding the cooperative boundary agreement. The council may reconvene into open session to take action on the items discussed in closed session.
Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Motion by Preschel, second by Levy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. We are now in closed session.
So we would need a motion to go back into open session.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Blakely, second by Jacobson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Council is reconvened. Would the city manager like to present a report?
Thank you, yes. As the council recently discussed, staff is recommending a resolution disallowing claim 19-0025 filed by the town of Turtle. This is resolution 2020-033.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Motion by Forbeck, second by Preschel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Item 13, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Levy.
Second.
Second by Forbeck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.